My name is Rachel Pater, and I work as an LGBT youth advocate, and I've also been collecting the stories of these youth formally in my academic research this past year. In my brief comments today, I want to share with you a few of these youth voices, but first, I'd like to frame this policy issue of the urban camping ban and how it affects the youth I work with specifically with another hot-button issue. Gay marriage has been at the forefront of the news both locally and nationally these past few weeks, and Governor Hickenlooper's signature on the Colorado Civil Unions Bill will allow my lesbian and gay sisters and brothers to enjoy the legal benefits this recognition entails. This step towards equality, I believe, is one in the right direction. However, the people that benefit most from legal unions or marriage are the people already closest to the epicenter of society's benefits. Let me say this another way. The LGBTQ youth I work with do not benefit from this type of legislation. This is an important, if obvious, point because it exposes the way the political machine works to include and exclude. Those on the fringe, folks experiencing homelessness, are pushed further out when bills criminalizing homelessness are passed. The gay rights movement has the money and political backing to benefit its members, and it's no surprise nor coincidence that a community without these resources is negatively impacted by legislation like the urban camping ban. And within this homeless population, we see LGBT folks, people of color, young people, and people without documents taking the biggest hit. This type of legislation against the already marginalized is nothing new. Chronicling the issue of homelessness within the US for the last 100 years in his book called Citizen Hobo, Todd DePastino talks about Skid Row communities right here in Denver during the Cold War era, and how through legislation, these property owners were forced to sell their properties. A project, he states, and I quote, was a planned event, a project launched by those who directed the forces of change in order to eliminate a noisome social problem. For those of us who know the stories of folks experiencing homelessness, we see the politics behind these moves and whose best interest they have in mind. As Elliot Leaboy puts in his ethnographic project on homelessness in 1993 called Tell Them Who I Am, quote, there is not nearly so much craziness among homeless persons as there is in the systems ostensibly designed to help them. The urban camping ban is another in a long line of attempts to both break apart and further marginalize communities while also purporting to have the solutions to all of their problems. Now that is legit crazy. Now, here briefly, 3 quotes from the research I did this past year on the intersections of LGBTQ identities and homelessness. Manuel, a Latino, gay-identified 19-year-old, had this to say: there were some nights I couldn't get a place to sleep, and I was just walking around, and of course I was high, so being paranoid of not only the cops, but what people could and would do to me if I let it be known that I was gay and homeless. I had to hide my sexuality a lot, just because of being embarrassed or harassed or ganged up on. It was kind of like I either fight or I don't, and there were a lot of times when I was homeless, I just threw up my hands and I was like, whatever you want, just take it from me, just leave me alone. Now the words of an 18-year-old female who identifies as bisexual. I was so desperate to the point I called this chat line every single day. I would sleep with someone just to make sure I had a place to sleep. I did that for a good 2 weeks. She then talked about trying to get out of this industry, saying, so I started sleeping outside, park benches and stuff. A cop comes up to me one night and tells me to leave. I was like, this is amazing. What happens if you're homeless and sleeping in a park? He was like, you go to jail. And I was like, oh, I'm cool, I'm gonna leave. For these youth, the urban camping ban is just another card in a deck stacked against them. But not all stories are doom and gloom. What has struck me most in this research has been the amazing resiliency of our city's youth. Storm, a female-to-male transgender 20-year-old, told me the following, and it's a beautiful manifesto. I can see a lot of things that most people who are civilized and who grew up with money and privilege don't. I know what it means to accept somebody for who they are versus what they have. I know what it means to truly love somebody and have a complete spiritual connection because you guys face danger and ugliness every day of your lives, and you fight it together. I know what it means to truly care about somebody for who they are and accept that, and to be accepted in return for who I am versus what I am. You see, we dismantle the master's house with storytelling tools like these, like the survey that's being released, and by forming relationships within and across the houseless divide, so we can work together to make sure folks on the edges of society are enveloped and protected before moving those on the brink of inclusion to the center. We must also think about our political agency, electing people who will truly represent us, who are not easily reduced to political puppets representing the fearful, the wealthy, and the elite. I look forward to continuing this work with you all.